Good morning. I'm gonna wait just a couple minutes here. Get set up. And all right. Good morning. Thank you for joining me for VirtualPBX-admin training. If you're a vConsole customer, the trainings are available on our website under support, and in fact, under our vConsole support page. And if you scroll down, it's going to be this video here. That's for our vConsole customers. This training is focused for our Dash admins. So first and foremost, you want to go to our login page. You can always get to the login page from anywhere on the site. Just click on the top here and log in. Your first option is to log into Dash. Just below that, this is the web phone, which you would have to set up on Dash. But once it is set up, you can log in here. And then at the very bottom, we have our vConsole login. Clicking on it opens up a new tab and takes you to the login page. Your username is always going to be an email address, which you should get. Password. Generally speaking, the default password that we create for you is very complicated, and I don't expect anyone to memorize it. The majority of our customers end up changing it to something they can remember. And then lastly, account name. This is normally your business name or company name. It could also be your own name if you're just running this yourself. If you ever forget the info or you keep getting a bad password or credentials, your forgot info link is right there. And then you click sign in. And once the page loads, there you go, you're on your dashboard. So this is basically a quick screenshot of what's going on with your system right now. You see your agents. In this case, you also see your users and your agents, excuse me. Your total number of devices, your main phone numbers, fax box number, total phone numbers. And actually here we can do that, get a little bit more view. For new customers, when you first log in, you're going to get pop-up dialog boxes basically telling you, it's basically a startup wizard telling you what things are, what to do, etc. Definitely read through those. They're very helpful. Starting at the top, caller ID. You choose one of your main numbers, assuming you have a main number assigned. Then you put in your company name. This is for your outbound calls. And then your E91 address. So if you're using VoIP phones and you call 911, this will be the address that is transmitted to emergency services. So please make sure this is correct. And then click Save Changes. Hold music. This is basically your default hold music for the system. You can always choose to upload a file. It needs to be a .wav or .wav or .mp3. And then you would click on this button right here to upload it. Right now, we're having a slight issue of files over 1 meg. Our engineers are still working on it. So you may need to have it compressed further to successfully upload. So let's go ahead and click over to main number. And just so you know, yes, the Dash pages do take a little bit to load. All right, when you click on main numbers, you see your main numbers. So these numbers all act the same way. So they'll have the same greeting, they'll have the same routing. These little icons indicate E911, inbound CNAME is active, which is on your inbound calls, you could see the company name if it's provided to us. And then we have here prepend. Prepend is for VoIP phones. You have the ability to add additional text or numbers in front of the inbound caller ID on your VoIP phones. Basically, if it's for like a special advertising campaign, for example, you can put an extra set of text, basically saying, like you put an ad in Time magazine, you put time in front of the phone number if you wanted to, etc. And this little gear icon, this allows you to adjust those settings. Sync is if for some reason a number isn't quite working properly. Generally speaking, you don't need to use it or click on it. Down below here, you have your options to add numbers. So add from spare numbers means you have numbers on your account that you're not using. We click on it. You'll see I have a number of these numbers available, and I can add any one of these by clicking on the box, add selected number, and boom, now it's a main number. Or I can click on by numbers and I have an option for local or toll free. Now for new accounts, you may not have any numbers on your account, so you would start by clicking on by numbers. We'll go with local, and we will go with, we'll see what's available in 408. And unfortunately, there's nothing available in 408. Now, some area codes simply, they're exhausted. And those are the original, I think it's like 47 or 48 area codes that were created in the late 40s. And that's why things like overlays have been created and why most people have to do 11-digit dialing these days. So this is actually an overlay for Las Vegas, 725. And you pick a number you want, click add, and then you click by numbers. Now the system verifies that the number is actually going to work and is available, and then adds it to your system. There you go. For new accounts, by default, new accounts start with 2 numbers as part of their plan. So when you click by numbers, you're not being charged for those numbers. They're just going to be simply be added. It's once you get past your initial allotment that you start being charged, and that's $4.99 per month for local or toll-free numbers. If you are looking for a vanity number, so like a toll-free number that spells something out, you're going to want to email our porting department, porting@virtualpbx.com. Give them the parameters that you're looking for, and they'll see what's available and let you know. And for international numbers, again, you would also email porting@virtualPBX, and they'll need to know the city and the country that you're looking for. And just be aware, some countries require proof of presence in order to get a number. So like Germany, for example, if you want a number in Munich, you have to have like a utility bill, for example, for an address in Munich to get a number for that. It varies from country to country. Germany, I just know, comes up fairly often. All right, so after you've added your numbers, you now have office hours strategy, basically, when you're open. So by default, new accounts start off with 24 hours open office, but most customers choose to go custom. We'll scroll down a little bit here. Each day of the week, you put a check mark that you're open, and then you put your time in 24-hour time or military time. And then if you're not open, you just leave it unchecked. And then you have this other option right down here. If your entire office closes for lunch, then you can check this and enter your lunch hours, and the system will give you additional options. And again, you can save changes. Next up is office holidays. So first and foremost, are you closed for holidays? Click check to say yes. And then you can add a holiday. Now, single day, pretty obvious or self-explanatory, is you're adding one day. So we'll just say, what is this? Off. We'll make it at the end of the month. And then you go back here. All right, so tell the system on August 31st that you're going to be closed because you're calling it a holiday. Now, main thing to remember for holidays, there's no entry for the year. So for holidays that don't have a set date, i.e. not Thanksgiving or not 4th of July, you're going to have to come back here and either after that holiday delete it, so that way for the next year you can just come in and re-enter it, or remember to change the date as needed. The other caveat is for date range, you want to avoid using date range for the end of the year, so covering New Year's. Basically, December 31st through January 1st, if you have any date range that encompasses those two dates consecutively, the system puts you into holiday mode the whole year because there's no year indicator in this. So for New Year's time, we recommend just doing single day for each day that you're closed, and then any other time of the year, you don't have to worry about it. And then the advanced, that allows you to do things like the first Monday of July, right? So every first Monday in July going forward it will be a holiday. You can choose days of the week, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, last, etc. And that is all its holidays. Next is incoming call handling. So this is how your system is handling your main numbers. First option here, incoming call goes to the virtual receptionist. And you click on that link, and this is your virtual receptionist. So over here on the left, this is your main menu. So this is what your customers press on their phones to navigate through your phone system. Right, so pressing 1 is going to this Borderlands 3 info, and that's this little icon lets you know it's a ring group because there's multiple people. Pressing 2 goes to support, which is another ring group. 3 goes to Ray Palmer, just a single person. And then press 4 goes to the Smart PBX directory. If you need more options, you just press Add Route. Here are your available options. And then here you have your various users are listed first. Call queues, so if you enable ACD queues on your system, this will be available. You can go to devices. The downside about going to device is that you basically bypass anything else on the system. So it might be problematic to transfer a call, for example. Media, this is to one of your uploaded media files. So whether it's a voicemail greeting or hold music, what have you. But basically, once that file completes its playback, the call ends. Groups, these are ring groups, the groups of people or departments. And then lastly, you have a voicemail box. So you want to say, hey, leave us a message, press 5. Greetings. First is your text to speech. Basically, you type it in, you click update, it's live, and you can adjust it as you see fit. Not a bad way to start if you're not sure what you want to do, or if you think you might be making changes later. Upload your own file, again, a .wav or .mp3. You find the file on your system, and then you would click update, and it'll upload it to our server. You can choose from existing recordings if you've already uploaded several. You can record it over the phone. Now, in this instance, this is for VoIP phones. By default, the system, because how the system works with VoIP phones, it will know when a VoIP phone is registered and connected. So it treats it as a trusted device and will allow you to record over the phone. So when you call in, either if you don't have a greeting already set up, it will prompt you, and then you can enter this PIN number. If you already have a greeting, so let's say you have the text-to-speech, which I know I do because it's highlighted here, then when that greeting plays, I can enter the PIN number, and it will then prompt me to start recording over the phone, and it'll walk you through it. And then lastly, we have the professional recording. So we've partnered with another company called Snap Recordings. They have their own pricing. The major advantage is they have something like 80 to 100 voice actors to choose from. They have different versions of English. They can go bilingual. They have, actually, here's their voice talent library. So again, different versions of English. They have Spanish, European French, as well as bilingual options. These are all their voice talent. And then they have different pricing options. So they can just do like a main greeting for you, but they can also do things like mix in music and a greeting. So if you want to use it for hold music or as your greeting, completely up to you. And they handle delivery to you. It will be in a format that you can upload to Dash. So pretty handy. Next set of calling options. So call comes in, go to a user, or usually, most people don't choose media. Usually they choose a group. It can also be a voicemail. Yeah, should be a group. Okay, just making sure. Hadn't changed anything. So basically, in this case, what you're doing is call comes in, it goes to a ring group, meaning you have a group of people who can take that call. If they're not able to answer that call for whatever reasons, then the caller goes to your virtual receptionist, and it should load. And then again, you have those same options we had before. Again, option 5 isn't here because I didn't hit save last time. And then this last option here, call comes in. Again, it can go to a user. You can have it go to a queue in this case. You can have it go to a device, or most likely a ring group. Or you have this other option, skip to voicemail. But if, for instance, you have it go to a user, they're not able to pick up, then you can determine which voicemail box it's going to. So this option here is basically if you want staff members to have a chance to answer a call before the inbound caller goes to a virtual receptionist. Whereas you have it either go to a user or to a group, they're not able to answer the call, goes to voicemail. One thing to keep in mind when you have, for these two options, when calls come into either a user or a group, it's only going to ring those people for 20 seconds. That's the way it was hard coded. It doesn't matter what changes you make to a user's ring duration or to a ring group's ring duration, still only rings for 20 seconds. So that is one potential drawback for these two calling options. Now up here, you notice that this is for our open hours. You have a tab here for your lunch hours, so you can have each of these be different. Right? After hours, for instance, if you have, I don't even know if I made a special group. So like if you have a special, say, after hours group, then you can have calls go to that group, for example. And then you can have yet another option for holidays where, hey, skip the voicemail, leave a message. Again, after making changes, especially in the incoming call handling, right? If we add a change, you want to click save here, but you also want to save again here. And that way, all your changes should be saved. There it is. All right, main conference number. You can actually have multiple conference numbers if you wish. And this custom greeting is actually a text-to-speech greeting only. And so you can just type in whatever you want and click save. And so this allows inbound callers to access your conference bridge. You would have to enable conferencing as a user feature for each user that you wish to be able to host a conference. Main fax box number, this is for your inbound faxes. You can only have the one fax box number. And if you edit the fax box, this shows you the email address that we are sending the faxes to. And it's going to be in a PDF, generally speaking. Next, we got the Numbers tab. Oh, shows all your numbers in use. Now you notice this one here has this little icon. Basically, this was a port-in request that has not been completed. Once it gets black like the others, you'll get the little gear icon and let you know it's available. If you do port in a number, actually, let's go to spare numbers and we can talk about it. So port, actually here, I might have did that a little quick. Oh, let's, wow. Okay, so under spare numbers, you have by, port, and sync, which doesn't get used. So by, just like under the main numbers, local or toll-free, you can look for a number you want. Porting a number is you're moving a number from one carrier to another. So in this case, say from AT&T to VirtualPBX. You would click on new port request, and then you'd enter this information. And basically, you would follow the screen directions. Now, a couple things to keep in mind with porting. And here, let me bring up the doc here, because that's a little bit easier to see. There we go. So these details right here are among the most important. Basically, for a port to be successful, you essentially have to have two active accounts. One on the carrier that has the number currently, and then an active account for where you're moving the number to. And they both have to stay active until the port completes. So if you're porting to us, once we have the number, we send you an email letting you know, yes, your port's completed. We've tested it to make sure it's working properly. At that point, you can go back to your old carrier and say, hey, I want to end my service. The number's ported out, et cetera, et cetera. Porting has a variable timetable. Toll-free numbers can take about 3 to 5 business days, give or take. Local numbers, I've seen them take 1 day, but I've also seen them take up to 6 weeks. The average tends to be about 2 to 3 weeks. You're going to need to upload a copy of your phone bill, and you'll also need what's called a letter of agency, an LOA, which you can download. And we have a sample of a filled out one here. Basically, the LOA, or letter of agency, basically is you fill it out. It has to match the information that is that your current carrier has on file for that phone number. We submit that directly to the other carrier along with the bill. They verify, yes, it's the right company. Yes, it's the right number. Yes, this person is the authorized person, etc. And if everything is right, they say, hey, yes, it's all right. We'll release this number to you on this date. We get that, and then we let you know. If there's any kind of problem, they say the port's rejected. They give us a reason. Again, we communicate that to you. And normally that means you have to contact the current carrier to find out what information was wrong specifically. Like they'll tell us the address is wrong. They won't tell us which part of the address is wrong specifically. They'll just say the address is wrong. And normally we suggest getting what's called the CSR, or the customer service record. And that's porting in a nutshell. And again, this shows you your numbers that you're not using for whatever reasons. But then this also tells you, okay, office number is your main numbers. If they have a person's name, it means it goes right to that user. Call flows is either a fax or going to an ACDQ. Possibly you could have something custom. Doesn't happen too often. Then you have your main conference number as well. Users. So depending on your plan, each user, what you add will add to your bill. So please be aware of that. But here you get to see all your users and their base information. So their name, their extension, If he has this little icon here, that tells you they have multiple extension numbers. Phone numbers, this is a directed dial number to this user. So it doesn't go through your main numbers or anything like that. You just go straight to this person. Devices, this could be cell phones, could be landlines, could be soft phones, VoIP phones, etc., or web phone. And then user features. So every user has at least voicemail. So when you create a new user, their voicemail box is created at the same time. It's technically a special version of a voicemail box because it's intrinsically tied to that user. If you delete that voicemail box, realize you did that in error, and then try to recreate a new voicemail box, it doesn't have that same intrinsic tie, so you can't exactly have like voicemails get notified directly to that person, and it's also harder for them to dial into their phone to get their voicemail. So ideally, try not to delete the voicemail boxes of a user unless you're absolutely certain they don't need it. All right, so this user is just your standard user. Anyone with a little blue suit tells you they're a system admin. This is a test account, so we have lots of system admins, mostly so people can try different things just to see if they're understanding things. Adding a new user, start by clicking up here. And then you add their name. And then they have to have a unique email address. Now, if, for instance, you have a group of people who just use a generic email address, you can do something what I just did here is just I added a numeral, and then kept the rest of the domain. So it's not an email address that would necessarily work, but as far as Dash is concerned, you can still log in this way. And then you would create a password, give it an extension number. Now the system knows I started off with 1000, and 1009 happens to be the next available extension. Probably was taken at one point, and I deleted that user, so it's available. Generally speaking, you probably want to include people in the user directory. And then this one right here is the next most important one, is to send the credentials to that user. And then you would click on create user. Can I go ahead and skip that on here? All right, so you click on a person's name. You can always change their name here. This is their username. You can change credentials, meaning you can change the email and the password. This is their voicemail box. You can always change their PIN, especially if they forgot it. Send emails to an alternate address. This is in addition to this email address up here. So like say Charles, say he wants it sent to his Gmail address as well, you can add that here. This is their status, admin or user. One thing to be careful of if you're a new sign up is your initial user is an admin. We've had at least a couple instances where that initial user logged in, started doing the things, accidentally changed themselves to a user and clicked Save Changes and logged out. Next time they logged in, they didn't have access to the dashboard and they weren't able to make any changes. So one little caveat, so you want to make sure you don't change that on yourself accidentally. This is for your time zone. You can just leave it with the account default, but if you have users who are in different areas, you can select it as appropriate. This is the language that the system is in. These are your options. Ringing timeout in seconds. So default is 20 seconds, which is typically enough for most phones. Cell phones that you might want to, if you have a user who primarily uses cell phones, then you probably want to change that to 30 or 45 seconds. And then the main extension, this is what the system will light up for voicemails. Extensions, that's their main extension here. You can always add a new one and just enter the extension number. You want to add a phone number. You can either buy a new one or add from spare. and click Save Changes. So now when anyone dials this number, it's going to go directly to Charles. Unfortunately, Charles doesn't have any devices. All right, so spare devices means you've already added them to the system or they were added previously. New device means you haven't added it. So a SIP phone, this is a VoIP phone. And these are the manufacturers that we have what's called auto-provisionable phones. Kind of a mouthful, but basically these are fairly easy to get set up from the get-go. So if you have, say, a Yealink phone, you look for the model of your phone, you would type in the name, and then you would type in the MAC address, and then you would click on Create Device. Now, you still have to do a little manipulation on the phone itself, on its web UI, to allow it to auto-provision. But once you do that, basically the phone reboots and will show up here. It'll have like this kind of icon, and then hopefully it'll be green, letting you know it's connected. And just so you know, for those manufacturers, we don't support every phone they produce. That's almost impossible, but for like, I know Yealink and Polycom especially, we have many of their most popular phones. Obi-Hi and Grandstream and less. I think Obi-Hi we only have 6 or 7 devices. All right, next up we have cell phone. Put in a name, whatever you want to call it, and then you want to put +1 area code and number. So we can just spell things properly. Create device, and now it's here. Now you have some other options here. So when a call comes in to this user on this particular device, when they pick up the call, they're going to hear our system come on and say, "This is a forwarded call. Please press 1 to accept the call." If you don't want to deal with that, i.e. you don't want to have to press 1, you just want to pick up and answer, you would click this check mark here and click Save Changes. So now you just pick up the call and answer. The downside is if your cell phone voicemail picks up, then your business call comes into your cell phone's voicemail. Some people love that, some people hate that. Purely up to you. Keep original caller ID. Basically, that inbound caller's caller ID will be sent to the cell phone. If you uncheck that, then what the phone number that gets transmitted will be the VirtualPBX phone number or your main number that they dialed to get into the system. Landline, by the way, is essentially the same. Add +1 area code and number has the same options. Soft phone, should probably read this message, comes up every time. So a soft phone is what you use for a software application on a computer. You can also use it for an app on a mobile phone. And you can also use it to program a VoIP phone that isn't on the auto provisions list. A couple of things to keep in mind. If you're going to use the VirtualPBX soft phone apps, you don't need to go through this. You're just going to want to email support@virtualpbx.com or billing@virtualpbx.com, either one, and they'll get it to our fulfillment team, and they'll get that sent out to you. If you're going to use the desktop version of the VirtualPBX soft phone, there is a licensing fee required for that, which is $40 per license. So in that case, you're better off sending the email directly to billing. But you would type in a name. This username is what you would use to program your device or application. If you click on this box, you can see the password. And this realm is going to go into the server fields of your application. Configuration, this will go to a page on our website, which talks about some auto provision mobile phones. And this will be changing hopefully in the near future, where we'll have more general information about general soft phone applications, etc. Advanced audio codecs, these are the two that we have by default. There's a couple others we support, but we generally don't have them started over or put it on selected automatically because it can sometimes cause problems for some people. And these are some of your other options. Web phone makes use of WebRTC. Basically, on a desktop or laptop version of Firefox or Chrome, you can use that browser to make and receive phone calls over your internet connection. You don't have to add anything else other than you should probably have a mic and speakers or a headset of some type. But beyond that, you put in your name, put in device name. So create. And most of this you probably won't need. But then, if we go back here to the login page, you can log in here. And this uses the exact same information that you use to log into your account. So your email address, your password, and your account name. I'll use mine. Oops. All right. So can you dial here? This is the directory. So these are the users that are on my account. You have audio options here. You probably want to allow it to use your mic, but it will look for your other devices on your computer. And then you just dial normally to make and receive calls. But as I said, right now, this only works on Firefox and Chrome. We are working to get it on Safari and Edge. I don't have a time frame for those at this time. It does not work on mobile versions of those browsers. I don't know if when for those particular options. And they'll probably be adding, or at least from what I've been told, there'll be additional features being added to the web phone as time goes on. Let's see, did I forget any? Fax is if you have a digital fax or a network fax machine, i.e. It doesn't connect to an analog phone line. And then ATA is an ATA adapter, basically allows an old analog phone to go onto your network to use VoIP. Generally speaking, ATAs were a nice bridge as people got used to the idea of VoIP. These days, you're probably better off just going to a VoIP phone instead of using an ATA adapter, because that just introduces another point of failure or conflict. All right, user features. Caller ID number. This will only work if they have a phone number. You can turn it on. This is the caller ID that will display when they make outbound calls. Then you click Save Changes. And you notice it's got the little new icon, and that's green. Call forwarding. So by default, it's off. This is generally speaking best for VoIP phone users. And you can go failover mode especially. So if for some reason you say your desktop VoIP phone isn't connected, like you lost internet connection, for example. Failover mode means since the system can detect when a VoIP phone is connected to us, it says, oh, disconnected. Well, you can set this up and enter +1 area code phone number. So when the system says, oh, your VoIP phone is no longer connected, I'm forwarding all calls to this user to this cell phone. Nice handy feature. Or you can just turn it on. So like, for instance, the user tells you, hey, I'm going to be in offsite meetings all day. Can you have calls forward to my cell phone? Now, call forwarding is one of the few features that the users can access through their user portal, so they can also set that up themselves. Main thing to remember is that this device, so this cell phone, should not be a device on the user. You just want to leave it off completely. Basically, I use call forwarding. This is something you use occasionally, whereas if you have a cell phone as a device, that's something you use almost daily. Be the main differentiation. Hot desking, this is something you use in a shared office environment, especially where people don't have an assigned desk, i.e. they switch desks and VoIP phones, say every few days or every day. This basically allows that user to log into that phone at whatever desk they have to be sitting in, so they can take calls to their calls at that phone that they have to be sitting at. At the end of the day, they can log back out of that phone, and the next day, log into whatever other phone they go to, and still get their calls. Hot desk ID, I say usually make this a 3 or 4 digit number. When I was making use of hot desking extensively, I just used my extension number because I knew that number. And then I did use a PIN just to get used to the whole idea of it. Not a commonly used feature. Fax box. This is if you want this specific user to have their own fax box. And click enabled. Now the best way to do that is to have them have their own number for it. So then that this number goes directly to this user's fax box. Now you can assign a new extension number, and then you would have to, so this is showing you the extensions that are on the system right now. So i.e. choose a different one, which means basically the person who's faxing has to call your main number from their fax machine, enter the extension number, and then hit start or start fax to send the fax off. For a lot of people, that might be problematic because you're relying on other people to be able to follow those instructions. And most people who send faxes just enter a number, hit fax, and then they walk away from the fax machine. You're going to go down to here. So follow me only works if you have multiple devices. And this allows you to determine when those devices are rung or how they're rung. Right? I can choose to say don't ring, or I can put it back in the system. I can have them all ring at once. That's known as blast ringing. And then, or I can hit distribute. So like, oh, rings this phone first, then the second, the web phone, and then the soft phone. The total time is measured up here, 120 seconds. And these are for calls that basically they went to the virtual receptionist and then they entered my extension number or my menu option number. They get to me. Music on hold. So this is for when the specific user puts someone on hold. They can put their own file up here that they want their people to listen to. Customized call recording. So if you've enabled call recording on your account, This allows you to fine tune it for your individual users. So inbound internal means another user on the account called me. I'm going to record and so in this case, I'm not recording it. However, someone from outside the company, external, calls me, inbound. So inbound external, someone outside the company calls me, recording that call. Likewise, I call another extension owner or user, doesn't record, but I call a customer, so external call, again, recorded. And up to you if you just want to choose them all off or on, up to you. That is users. Let's go over to groups. So groups is shorthand for ring groups. Basically, it's a department. Some people would also refer to these as a hunt group. Let's call this, what's Labor Day coming up soon? All right, so name it, you give it an extension number. And that extension number is typically for your staff members to transfer calls to them. And then you click and drag the people who are in this group. And then click on Create Group. If you click on the name again, we have a relatively new feature, and this is dialing repeats. You have a little arrow icon here. So basically, this tells the system how many times that caller can go through the ring group. So right now, inbound caller hits this ring group, they get to go through once, and then that's it. Right? So if I up it, then they can go through twice, et cetera, et cetera. Initially, when ring groups first came out, they only got one ring through. You click on the members box. This is sort of like follow me calling is for the user. But basically, you can adjust the sliders. Oops. How you want it. Oh, and if I want to change the order, I can move people around. So, for instance, let's say Duke's one of my busier people. He's got other responsibilities. He should be towards the bottom. Or I can always, again, click distribute, and it rings you to the user so many times. I can always adjust this to 200, for example. And then we'll need to do redistribute again, and then save changes. If you click on the extension box, it says, hey, you can unassign it, or you can add a different extension. Phone numbers, again, you can assign a phone number directly to a ring group, so it goes straight to it. So, on your website, you say, hey, we have this special promotion, call this number, and it goes to the special ring group you created. Like Labor Day sale, call this number, goes to this group. All right, group features, call recording. This is pretty binary, yes or no, and it records all calls that come into this group to all the users. Oops. See, little mic. Bring back, this is essentially the hold music while they're waiting for someone to pick up. Save changes. The main thing you have to remember about the ringback, however, is that the length of that file needs to match or exceed your total ring duration that you set up here under members. So in this case, 240 seconds. I really set that to 240. Okay. That's a little short. If your ringback file is shorter than your ring duration, when the music file ends, it creates that's the end of the call, even if you still have 3 or 4 other people available to call, and it just starts on the back at the beginning. Next action. What do you want the system to do if no one in the ring group picks up? The most common is either go back to the main menu or go to a voicemail box. You can have it go to a particular user or a particular device, but typically it's have it go to a voicemail box. Basically, sorry, we weren't able to take your call. Allow call forward. So this allows any of your users who have call forwarding enabled to make use of that for calls that come into their ring group. If you don't want that enabled, then it's not going to go to their forwarded device. Caller ID prepend. This is again for people who are taking calls off of their VoIP phones. You can put text here. Or how is it? Or a numeric. Prepend, and that just lets your staff members know when they look at their phone and pick up the call, going, oh, this is for the Labor Day group. Devices shows your devices on the account. And you can always add the devices, you have the same options as before. If you want to disable a device, you just do that. And you also have the same options for editing devices here that we've seen previously. So for a landline, this allows you to get to the options. Voicemail boxes. So you'll see all the voicemail boxes for the users, and then you'll see other ones down here that we have made for ring groups, etc. So since we made a new ring group, so you make a name for it, you give it a voicemail box number and a PIN number. Create a voicemail box. And there it is. You can click on the little wrench icon. You can go to advanced options. Actually, the first one you should go to is greeting media. So here you can upload a greeting file for this voicemail box. And something like that. Or I can upload a new file. So I'd look for the file on the computer and then click on this little icon here to upload it and then save changes. So once you have a media file associated with it, then if you go under options, you can click on that box there, already set up. And then the last advanced option is recipients. Who do you want to get the notifications and the voicemails for this voicemail box? That's when you just put in an email address. Now, you have to do one at a time. So if I wanted to add more people, it might take a little bit of time if I have to add like 10 people. Of course, at that point, I've said you should talk to your email provider and talk about making an email list. Okay, agents are specific to your ACD queues. ACD queues have additional routing options over ring groups, which is why they're more expensive. Agents, however, are very limited. They have to have a unique name or unique email address, excuse me. But this will look fairly similar. The main thing is currently they get an extension and they can only have VoIP devices. They technically have a voicemail box, although it's not something that you can really access here. But if you look under devices, you can only add a SIP phone, a soft phone, or a web phone, and that's it. No cell phones, no landlines, etc. And again, these people are only to be taking calls from an ACD queue. Feature codes, these are codes you enter on your VoIP phone. Get a host of different options. Probably the most common is checking voicemail. Some people make use of the call forwarding one. And then if you're an ACD queue person or an agent, you can also just log in over the phone versus through the website. Call logs, this is the call details for calls that have come into the system. I don't think I've had, we have had some. And basically, green arrow pointing to the right means it's coming in. An orange arrow to the left means it's an outgoing call. And then originator cancel means inbound caller hung up. Normal clearing means it ended normally. And you can click on these, get some additional details, and then get a lot of details, most of which I don't know what they mean. Eventually, I know our engineers are working on advanced reporting that's going to be based off of the call log information. So that'll be easier for most regular folks to understand. Up here, you have some additional options. So dashboard, that's what we're on right now. Queues. This is where you set up your ACD queues. I'm just going to click on the settings here. So you can always change the name, call in or extension. You can always add a phone number so it's a direct number. Routing strategy. So round robin, essentially random for whoever's logged in the queue. It's eventually in the long haul it will even out. It just depends on how many people you actually have in your queue. Least calls means whoever's had the least amount of connected calls will get the next call that comes in, assuming they're available. Obviously, if they're already on a call, they're not going to get offered the call. Least offers means the least number of calls, or the person who's had the least amount of calls offered to them will get the next call. Right, so connected versus just offered. Doesn't mean that they picked up or not. And then most idle means whoever's been waiting around the longest without a call. Right, versus just a strict order of that is in a ring group. You've got different media files here you can have for hold music. Queue timeout is basically their total hold time within the queue. I'm not quite sure why they chose to have that measured in seconds. Queue call limit, basically the number of people who are allowed to wait on hold. Timeout immediately if empty, so i.e. you don't have anyone logged into the queue agent-wise. What do you want the system to do? So if you time it out immediately, it means they're going to go right to voicemail. Whereas if it's disabled, they're going to wait on hold until either the hold timer expires, so the 3,600 seconds, or someone logs in. Escalation call flow. Basically, caller's been waiting on hold, no one picked up. Okay, we're going to send this to, in this case, this voicemail box. But you can have no option. It's kind of weird. You should. Where did that go? Thought there was a way to have it escalate. Oh, sorry. Escalation queue. So if you have, so basically, caller is waiting, no one picks up. If you have an escalation queue active, then it says, oh, okay, I'm done waiting here. I'm sending it to the second queue. And then it's going to go by whatever that queue settings. If you don't have it active, then it goes to this voicemail box. I was missing something. Agent recovery time, basically after an agent has finished a call in seconds, how much time are you giving them before they're offered another call? Basically, they can get a sip of water, they can finish writing up a ticket, etc. Force away on rejected or missed. Basically, you can force an agent to be in away status if they miss a call. usually not enabled. And then agent connect timeout, basically how much time they have before they're timed out of the system. Oops. And then this shows all your queues. Just so you know, it is, I believe it's still $30 per ACD queue, so not the cheapest thing. Blacklist. Blacklist is a feature so you can block calls from coming into your system. If you have it, so this shows you your available lists and the ones that you actually have active, or you can click edit. You can add a new one, or you can just look at an existing one and add additional phone numbers. Again, +1 area code and phone number. You can turn block anonymous on, meaning if there's no valid call already sent in, will also be followed under these rules. And so if I don't want to make use of this anymore, I put it back under available. Or I'm like, oh, wait, that was a mistake. I want to make use of this. Click update. So now those phone numbers, if they try to call into the system, they're not allowed to connect. So a good way to get rid of like someone who's harassing your company, etc. Admins, you can get to the available faxes on the system. You basically select a fax box, and you can see the available faxes. Inbound, outbound, again, you would select the fax box. And then the email fax logs, basically letting you know what's been going on with the faxes, especially if there's been an error. The monitor, this lets you know what everyone's doing on the system. So green means they're waiting, available to take a call. Blue means they're on a call. Actually, they're on an inbound call specifically. Gold or yellow means they're on an outbound call. Red means they've marked themselves unavailable. And you can say he's available or who's busy. Call recordings, this actually goes to, I believe it's Amazon services that we use for hosting. I'm behind a VPN right now, so that's going to be a bad link. User portal, this lets you look at your user portal. So as if you were just coming in as a normal user, so you can check your voicemails, your call history, your own faxes, your contact lists, which is basically the user directory on the system, your conferencing, and then settings and devices. So I can enable call forward, for example, and I can enter the information I need. Oops. Voicemails, again, as an admin, you can get to any of the voicemail boxes. And then webhooks, this is basically for customers who are making use of APIs to basically connect Dash to another software application. This has to be enabled on the account. Unfortunately, our support team doesn't have a lot of tools to help you with that. It's something you would, as a user, have to be able to essentially program the other application to work with the information coming from Dash. And I want to go back to the dashboard. I want to double check one last thing here. Huh. And, all right, and that's everything. Just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything completely obvious. If you have any questions, I am glad to take them. Otherwise, I thank you for your time today and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. All righty. Again, thank you for your time, and I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream.